Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are doing something a little different. We're taking a phrase that I guarantee almost every single person listening has heard.
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere.
It is, right. You've seen it on a bumper sticker, maybe in a Bollywood movie, or, on a poster in a yoga studio. We are talking about Satyam Shivam Sundaram.
And usually the reaction is just, oh, that's nice. Truth, God, beauty. It sounds poetic.
Exactly. It's one of those things you file away under nice spiritual slogans, and then you just, move on with your day.
Which is a real tragedy when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because when you actually dig into the source material we're looking at today, you realize this isn't poetry.
No.
It's not a slogan at all. It is a highly technical manual.
That is exactly the vibe I got. It felt less like a greeting card and more like an operating system update for the human mind.
That is a perfect way to put it. An operating system for understanding reality, and I think more importantly, for understanding the machinery of yourself.
So before we start pulling this apart, and we are going to get into the weeds today, so buckle up, we need to set the context.
Sure.
This deep dive is based on a session by Sachin Karnik, and Sachin Karnik conducts daily Satsang online. All are welcome to join.
And just to clarify, because the context here really matters, Satsang basically translates to a gathering for the truth.
Right.
It's a specific kind of environment where the goal isn't just to, accumulate data. It's not a lecture hall.
No.
The goal is to undergo a shift in perspective, to actually see things differently by the time you leave.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive, to try and replicate that shift. We're not just looking for dictionary definitions.
Right.
We want to understand this specific framework, Satyam Shivam Sundaram, as a path of Upāsanā.
Upāsanā, which means devotional contemplative practice.
Exactly. And looking at the notes, this gets into some really deep psychological territory, and it gets there fast.
It does.
We're going to talk about why we physically cannot see the world clearly, the specific knot in our psyche that causes suffering, and, this is the part I'm most excited about, how to use beauty as a literal tool to hack your way to the truth.
It really does bridge the gap between, ancient metaphysics and what we might call modern psychology. But to get there, we have to start at the foundation. We have to talk about Satyam. Truth.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think on the surface I know what truth is. If I'm holding a pen and I drop it, gravity pulls it down. That's a fact. That's true.
Right.
If I say I'm wearing blue shirt, that's the truth. But the source material seems to think that that definition is, well, incomplete.
It's not so much that it's incomplete, it's that it's low resolution. The source makes a very, very distinct separation between what it calls biological fact and absolute truth.
Which, that sounds a bit slippery. Is this one of those my truth versus your truth kind of things? Because I feel like we have enough of that confusion in the world right now.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up because the source is incredibly strict about this. Satyam comes from the root word sat.
Sat.
Which means that which truly exists. It is immutable. It does not change. So Satyam is absolutely not about opinions or perspectives. It's independent of your bias.
So it's objective.
Highly objective. But here's the catch. The facts you listed, gravity, your blue shirt, even your own body, the source argues that those are all relative truths.
Okay, walk me through that, because my body feels pretty real to me right now.
Of course it does.
But
And it is factual. The source uses this fantastic example of human conception to illustrate the point. It gets very biological. So think about the sperm and the ovum. They unite. They form a zygote.
Right, high school biology. You get 23 chromosomes from mom, 23 from dad.
Exactly. You have this unique genetic and epigenetic blueprint. That is a fact. You can look at it under a microscope. You can't argue with DNA. If you take a paternity test, that biological truth holds up in a court of law.
Right. So why on earth does the source call this relative?
Because of the element of time. The source calls this Vyavaharika Satyam, which means a transactional or a practical truth.
Okay.
It belongs to prakriti, or material nature. And what is the fundamental rule of nature?
Change.
It's always changing. Think about that zygote you were decades ago.
Yeah.
Is that zygote true right now?
I mean, it existed.
Yeah.
But it's not here anymore. It turned into an embryo, then a baby, then a teenager with some questionable fashion choices, and now, me.
Precisely. It was a fact then, but that fact has expired. And the you, sitting here now. That form is also expiring. One day that body will become a corpse.
Right.
So while it is factual, it is not permanent. It has an expiration date. Therefore, in this very specific framework, it cannot be the capital T truth.
That's a heavy distinction. It's like saying, look, it's true for now, but don't get too attached to it because it's literally evaporating as we speak.
That's exactly it. Now, contrast that with Paramarthika Satyam.
The absolute reality.
Yes. This is Brahman, the infinite, unchanging substrate of existence. The source says this is the only thing that doesn't have an expiration date.
Okay, I follow the logic, but then the source pivots to something that I have to say, it hit me a lot harder than the zygote example.
Which section you mean?
It starts talking about our perception of other people, specifically our mothers.
This is a profound part of the teaching.
It really messed with my head a little bit because the source says, think about your mother. And I'm sitting there, I'm visualizing my mom. I know what she looks like. I know her voice, her favorite food. I know that specific face she makes when she thinks I'm making a bad decision.
We all know that face.
We all know that face, right? So if you ask me, do you know your mother? I'd say, of course I do. I know her better than anyone.
And that is exactly where the source stops you. It asks, is that image in your mind actually your mother? Or is it a projection?
And my gut reaction is to say it's her. But then when the source breaks it down, I started to seriously doubt it.
Well, think about it. That image is built from your memories, right? It's basically a highlight reel of your interactions with her. But do you know her internal world?
No.
Do you know what she was thinking in, say, 1995 while she was driving to work? Do you know the secret fears she had when she was 25 that she never told a single soul about?
The stuff she didn't put on the family group chat.
Exactly that. The source argues that what we know of another person, even someone we love more than anyone, is maybe 1% of their total reality.
Wow.
The other 99%, their internal universe, their private thoughts, their biological processes, their entire history is completely unknown to us.
That is wild. It implies that we are all just walking around in a hall of mirrors. I'm not actually interacting with you, the full, complex human being. I'm interacting with the you that I've constructed inside my own head.
That's the distortion the source talks about. We live in a world of distorted images. We constantly mistake the map for the territory.
So if I only know 1% of you, and you only know 1% of me, who on earth knows the whole picture?
And that leads directly to the theological point. The source says, only Bhagavan God, or the Sakhi, the inner witness, is Sarvanya.
Omniscient.
Omniscient, yes. Only that divine vantage point sees the totality of a being. Everything else we see is just a fragment.
Okay, so we're bad at seeing others clearly. We're working with, incomplete sketches, but surely we've got to be better at seeing ourselves. I mean, I'm inside my own head. I should have a front row seat.
You would hope so.
Yeah.
But the source material suggests that this is actually where the biggest problem lies. We have a fundamental blind spot when it comes to ourselves.
And this brings us to the not.
Yes.
The source highlighted this specific Sanskrit term that it said every seeker needs to write down, Amya Jiva Granthi.
It is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But let's break it down because this single concept is the absolute linchpin of the whole discussion.
Okay. Aham means I, right? The ego.
Yes, ayam is that sense of identity, the ego. Then jiva is the individual soul, the consciousness that's embodied. And granthi means not.
So the not of the individual I.
Or, even better, the not of misidentification.
Yeah.
It describes a precise mechanism where consciousness, which is vast and free, mistakenly ties itself to the limitations of the body and the mind.
The source uses a car analogy here, doesn't it?
It does, and it's probably the best way to understand this. Imagine you are driving a car. You are the driver. Intellectually, I am the human, this is the machine. You're distinct.
Right. I'm the one pressing the gas pedal. The car's just metal and plastic and circuits.
But now imagine you have been in that car for a very, very long time. Let's say since the moment you were born. You've never once stepped out of it. Over time, a confusion starts to happen.
Okay.
The car gets a scratch on the bumper, you scream, ouch!
Right. Or the car runs out of gas and I say, I'm hungry.
Exactly. You don't say, the vehicle requires refueling. You say, I am hungry. That fusion, that moment where the driver begins to believe he is the car, that is the granthia. That is the not.
It seems so subtle, though. I mean, is that really a problem? It's just semantics, isn't it?
The source argues it is the root of all suffering. Because if you truly believe you are the car, then the car's eventual mortality becomes your mortality. The car's limitations, its dents, its scratches, become your limitations. You're constantly terrified because deep down, you know the car is going to break down eventually.
And the source uses two technical terms here to explain this connection and how to break it. Anvaya and Vyatireka. I want to make sure we get these right because they seem really important for the how-to part that comes later.
They're absolutely critical. So anvaya means immanence. It refers to that feeling of I am this, the soul pervading the form. When you stub your toe, the pain is immediate. You're in the toe. That's anvaya.
Okay, I get that. And Vyatireka.
Vyatireka means transcendent. It is the realization that, despite the very real feeling of being in the toe, the Atman, the true self, is actually separate from the body. It is the witness of the pain, not the victim of it.
So the practice then, the Upāsanā, is about trying to shift your identity from Anvaya to Vyatireka, from I am the hurting toe to I am the awareness that is noticing the toe is hurting.
Exactly. That is the act of untying the knot. But, and this is a really important positive point from the source, the body isn't the enemy here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people hear this, you are not the body stuff, and they immediately think, okay, so the body is a trap, I should ignore it or punish it. It's a prison.
And the source is very clear that that is completely the wrong take. The human body is a unique, incredibly precious opportunity. It's described as a vehicle specifically for moksha, for liberation.
It's a school, not a prison.
Right? It's the only platform where you can actually do the work to untie the knot. You need the resistance of the material world to develop the spiritual strength to transcend it. You can't learn to swim without getting in the water. The body is the water.
So we're in the water, we're in the car, we have this knot. How do we actually start untying it? This is where the source moves from high metaphysics to something extremely practical. It introduces a model called TEMDE.
TEMDE. This is the toolkit. The source suggests using your hand to remember it, one letter for each finger.
Thought, emotion, memory, desire, and energy.
Correct. These are the components of your antakara, your inner instrument. The source points out that usually we are just swimming in this soup. We are lost in our thoughts. We're swept away by emotions, hijacked by desires. We don't see them as separate things. We just feel like a mess.
I want to make this really practical because right now it just sounds like a list. Let's apply this. Let's say, okay, here's the scenario. I open my email inbox, and there is a really nasty, critical email from my boss.
A perfect scenario. Very visceral. Usually, what happens next?
Usually, I panic. My stomach drops. Then I immediately get defensive. I start typing this furious reply in my head. I'm thinking how much I hate this job. I'm just spiraling.
Right. You're in the vortex. You are the car, and the car just got rear-ended. Now let's apply the TEMD model to that exact moment. The goal is to step onto the riverbank and just observe the stream. So first, thought.
Okay, if I stop and actually look, the thought is, he thinks I'm incompetent. Or maybe this is so unfair, I worked so hard on that project.
Good. You see this out as a thought. You don't become it. You just label it. There is a thought about unfairness. Next, emotion.
Oh, fear. Definitely fear. And anger. A hot mix of both of those.
There is anger arising. There is fear arising. You're just acknowledging the fact of the emotion without endorsing it or getting swept away by it. Next, memory.
Why does this specific email trigger you so hard?
It probably reminds me of getting yelled at in my last job, or maybe even getting in trouble at school when I was a kid.
A memory is active. The mind is playing an old tape.
Okay, then desire. What do you want in that moment?
I want to be safe. Or I want to prove him wrong. I want to win the argument.
And finally, energy. How does your physical body feel?
Tight chest. Shoulders are up around my ears. Adrenaline is pumping.
Now see what just happened. You just deconstructed the entire chaotic experience. Instead of, I am angry and I'm going to get fired, it became, I am observing a complex system of thought, emotion, and energy that is reacting to an external stimulus.
That feels a lot lighter. It creates a space. It's like there's a gap between me and the panic.
That gap, that is the saka. That is the witness. And the practice of maintaining that gap is what the source, and references J. Krishnamurti here, calls choiceless awareness.
Choiceless awareness. I love that phrase, but it's a tricky one to really grasp.
It is. It means observing all of these TEMD phenomena without judging them. You aren't saying, oh, I shouldn't be angry, I'm a spiritual person. You aren't saying, I must stop thinking this. You are just saying, this is what is happening right now.
So if I feel anger, instead of fighting the anger or justifying it, I look at it.
You acknowledge the Satyam, the truth of the anger. The moment you judge it, positively or negatively, you are back in the knot. You're getting entangled again. Choiceless awareness is just the pure light of observation.
And the source frames Maya illusion in a very practical way here, too. It's not some big mystical fog that descends on us.
No, not at all. In this context, Maya is the distraction. It's the vortex of Temdi that pulls your attention away from your divine focus, from your Ishta. When you're worrying about that email or replaying an old argument in your head for the 100th time, that is Maya. It's anything that hijacks your attention from the present reality.
This requires a lot of vigilance, though. You have to be watching your own mind constantly. But the source warns us about a really specific trap here. A trap especially for people who are trying to be spiritual.
Oh, this is such a dangerous one. Mahant Swami Maharaj is quoted here, and he identifies two major obstacles to growth. And they aren't the usual suspects you'd think of, like lust or greed. They're intellectual obstacles.
And the first one is, this is repetitive. I've heard this before.
That is the death knell of all learning. I know this already. The moment your mind says that, you stop listening. You stop being able to receive anything new. The Force uses this incredibly powerful analogy here, the high-tension wire.
I loved this visual. So God or truth is this high-tension electrical wire. It's just humming with massive transformative power.
Right. It's flowing constantly.
Mm.
And we say we want to connect with that power. We want to be energized by it. But the belief that I already know acts like a pair of thick rubber lineman's gloves.
So you can go up and grab the wire?
You can grab the wire. You can hold on to the wire. You can even describe the wire to all your friends. Look at this wire. I know all about it. I know its voltage. But because you're wearing these gloves of intellectual arrogance, the current never actually touches you. You don't get the shock. You don't get transformed. You just hold the concept without ever getting the power.
That is such a good image. You have the concept, but not the power. And the second obstacle is very related to that. I already understand everything.
The I have arrived syndrome. The source tells a story about a scholar, a pandit, who came to visit. This man was brilliant. He had memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita and 3 of the major Upanishads.
In Sanskrit.
In Sanskrit, word for perfect word, an absolutely incredible intellectual feat. And the source acknowledges that it is a real accomplishment.
Yeah.
But it asks the key question, is verbal knowledge the same thing as Anubhava?
As lived realization.
Exactly. It's the difference between memorizing the entire menu at a 5-star restaurant and actually tasting the food.
You can know every item on the menu, you can describe the font it's printed in, but if you haven't actually eaten, you are still starving.
And the danger is that the ahakara, the ego, is so sneaky that it hijacks this spiritual progress.
This is the real trickiness of the ego, isn't it? It stops bragging about its money or its car, and it starts bragging about how humble it is or how many verses of scripture it knows.
Precisely. Look how holy I am. Look at how much I understand. The source warns that if the ego grabs the praise that comes with spiritual knowledge, all the progress is destroyed. It just reinforces the knot instead of untying it. You're just redecorating the prison cell.
So what's the actual barometer then? If it's not how many verses you know or how many followers you have, how do you know if you're actually making any real progress?
Ahanananda.
Unbroken bliss. That sounds like a very tall order.
It is. But notice the key word, unbroken. It doesn't mean the temporary happiness you feel when you get a promotion or you find a great parking spot. That is conditional happiness. It comes and it goes.
Right.
Akhanananda is independent of circumstances. It's a background hum of joy that doesn't waver even when the boss sends that nasty email.
That's the real litmus test. If you are still easily disturbed, you might have the words, but you don't have the realization. Okay, so we've talked a lot about truth, Satyam, and the many obstacles to it. Now we need to bring in the other 2 parts of this triad. We've been neglecting them. Shivam and Sundaram.
Right, and this is crucial because Satyam, this abstract, absolute, unchanging truth we've been discussing, is hard. It's dry. It's really difficult for the mind to grasp the unchanging reality. It's just too vast. And this is where Shivam and Sundaram come in to complete the path.
Let's define Shivam first.
Shivam is often translated as auspiciousness, but in a deeper sense, it really just means life. The source plays with the words Shiva and Shava.
Very similar sounding words.
Almost identical, but Shava means a corpse, a dead body. Shiva is that which has Shakti, or divine energy.
So Shivam is the life force.
It's the divine life, the auspicious, dynamic presence of the divine within a form. It's what makes the difference between a body that is alive and a body that is just, meat.
Okay. And then we have Sundaram,
Yeah.
beauty.
And this is where the source completely flips the script on us. We usually say the phrase in that order. Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Truth, auspiciousness, beauty. But the source argues that for the spiritual seeker, the practical order of experience is actually the reverse.
We don't start with truth, we start with beauty.
We have to, because Satyam is too abstract for the mind. But Sundaram, beauty, that's accessible. It's right there in front of your senses.
The source talks about a simple rose.
Yes. Just think about it. You see a beautiful rose, it has color, it has symmetry, fragrance, a soft texture. You don't have to force yourself to look at it. You don't have to use your willpower to enjoy a beautiful sunset.
You're just drawn to it. It arrests your attention, naturally.
That natural attraction is the hook. Sundaram captures the heart when the mind is too tired or confused to understand the philosophy. And this leads us to a topic that the source handles really well, but one which is often deeply misunderstood. Murtis, deities, statues, idols.
Yeah, let's definitely address this, because to an outsider, or maybe someone from a different religious tradition, idol worship can seem, well, primitive. Like you're literally just talking to a piece of stone.
And the source addresses this head-on. It frames the murti not as a superstitious object, but as a technology of worship.
A technology, I like that.
Yes, it calls them loci of presence. The murti is a focal point. It's an anchor for the mind that wants to wander everywhere. But it's not just the stone. It's the combination of mantra, which is sound technology, prout, life force rituals, and most importantly, bhavana, the devotee's own intent and feeling.
The intent is what activates it.
Exactly. The source mentions how we adorn the deities. We put on beautiful clothes, fresh flowers, jewelry, light incense. It says this is not superficial decoration. We're not just playing dress up with a doll.
It's functional.
It is functionally designed to engage the senses. The eye see the beauty. The nose smells the incense and the flowers. The ears hear the bells and the chants. It uses the magnetic power of beauty to pull the mind out of that chaotic temdi vortex we talked about and focus it on one single beautiful point.
So the beauty creates the connection. It opens the door.
Right. And through that connection, as you focus on the beautiful form, you begin to feel a presence. You stop seeing just a carved stone and you start feeling the Shakti. And that is Shivam. You feel the life force, the auspiciousness radiating from it.
So you move from beauty, Sundaram, to life, Shivam.
And from Shivam. If you go deep enough, you start to realize that this life force isn't just in the statue. It is the substrate of everything. It's the ultimate reality. And then you reach Satyam.
That makes so much more sense. It's a ladder. You start on the rung you can actually reach, which is what you can see and love beauty.
Yeah.
It leads you to what you can feel, life.
Yeah.
And that leads you to what simply eyes truth.
Precisely. You can't just try to jump to the top rung of the ladder. You have to use the senses to eventually transcend the senses.
And the source is very clear that this doesn't stop at the temple door.
No, absolutely not. That's just the training ground. The ultimate goal is Jivan Mukti liberation while still living. The source gave this beautiful example of how to expand this vision. It talked about just touching a tree.
I really liked this practice.
It asks, can you walk through a park, touch the rough bark of an old tree, and feel that you are touching Bhagavan? Can you feel the Shivam, the life force in that tree, just as intensely as you felt it in front of the altar in the temple?
That requires breaking the image again, doesn't it? It requires breaking the mental label that just says, this is wood.
Exactly. It's about seeing the truth that animates the form. When you can do that, when the entire world becomes your murti, that is the end of the distortion. That is seeing Satyam everywhere.
It really brings the whole thing full circle. We started with the biological facts, the relative truth of a zygote, and we end with seeing the absolute truth in everything from a stone statue to a tree in the park.
And the mechanism for that entire shift is awareness and devotion, using beauty to train the eyes to see the truth.
It's a powerful and a very complete roadmap. I want to circle back to one thing before we wrap up. We talked about the images we hold of people. We use the mother example, but the source really challenges us to apply this to literally everyone we meet.
It does, and I think that's probably the most actionable takeaway from this whole deep dive.
So let's do a quick recap of the journey we've been on, just to lock it all in.
Sure. We started with Satyam. We realized that while biological facts are true in a sense, they are relative and they are always changing. The absolute truth is the unchanging witness behind it all.
Then we looked at the core problem, the Haham Jiva Granthi, the knot. That deep-seated confusion where the driver thinks he is the car. We mistake our ego and our body for our true self.
We then discussed the practical tool for untying that knot. Psychological awareness. Using that 10D model thought, emotion, memory, desire, energy, and practicing choiceless awareness to step out of the reactive vortex of the mind.
And we warned against the traps, especially the intellectual arrogance, that I know this already, attitude that acts like rubber gloves, insulating us from the actual transformative power of the truth.
And finally, we laid out the path, using Sundaram, beauty, as the gateway to connect with Shivam, the auspicious life force, which ultimately and inevitably reveals Satyam, the one truth.
It's a very comprehensive system. It's not just philosophy. It feels more like engineering for the soul.
It really is. And it asks for a fundamental shift in how we operate from moment to moment. It asks us to just wake up.
So here is a final thought to leave you with. We talked about how we hold these images of people, even the people we love the most. We think we know them, but we're mostly just interacting with our own projections.
The source says 99% of what we think we know about them might be false, just our own mental construction.
So try this today. The next time you are talking to someone, your partner, your parent, your boss, even if they just sent you a nasty email, try to catch yourself. Catch yourself referencing the image you have of them. Catch the prediction your mind is making about what they're going to say or do next.
And see if you can just drop it, just for a second.
Look at them with that choiceless awareness. Look at them as if you were seeing them the very first time, without the history, without the baggage.
You might be surprised at who is actually standing there in front of you.
And you might be even more surprised at who is standing there watching them.
Indeed. And that is where the deep dive really begins.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Satyam Shivam Sundaram. It's been a fascinating journey through this source material.
It really has been.
For more information, please contact Sachin J. Karnik at the email address provided in the description box.
Until next time.
See you then.